Hello, my name is Rachel Lane, and this is my client case presentation for our field practicum class. So to begin, the identified problem that I will be focusing on today is a student states that they are frustrated about feeling tired all of the time. They note that they often fall asleep in class and do not have energy to get work done while at school. So some relevant data about this student that we will break down. First, I work with this student. We'll start in the upper left-hand box. Demographically speaking, this student is an African American male in the seventh grade with an IEP due to additional behavioral needs. His IEP goals specifically focus on providing the student with regulation skills and seeing that he applies his own coping skills in situations in which it is applicable. In addition, one of his goals is also taking initiative in using those coping skills. So not only is he equipped with them, but he applies them and doesn't need prompting to do so. Also, the student has been notably tired since the beginning of 2026, although we saw some early signs of the student being tired and not getting adequate sleep in the fall. We have seen a drastic increase in the amount that the student is falling asleep in class and having to go to the main office to take a nap during school and things of that nature within 2026. And that is why we are looking at this case study. Additionally, some other background is the student does have siblings at the school. He is the oldest. He has a younger brother who's also in our middle school section. And then he has younger siblings that are like toddler age. But the student also has a single mother who is supportive of the student, supportive of their academics and well-being. But as she has attempted to get him to sleep, she struggles to do so, often because the student either naps immediately after school and will come back home from school, lay down and sleep, and then wake up around like 8 p.m. and then stay up all night, slash get maybe 1 to 2 hours of sleep. Or when the student goes to bed at like 9 p.m., then the mom will make sure that he's asleep, but sometimes the student will wake up still like 2 to 3 hours later when the mom is also asleep, and then will watch TV or play video games. Um, Additionally, it's another factor to preventing the student to um, fall asleep when he gets home from school is that the mother works, and it is not guaranteed that every day she gets home when the students and his sibling get home at the same time. So it's difficult for her to put a stop on naps in the afternoon because she's not there all the time when they first get home. Now moving to the lower left-hand box. Per the student's IEP, the social work team meets with student for 20 minutes 3 times a week. And once again, those are for working towards those goals that I talked about. Additionally, another school policy that applies to this is the school handbook speaks about care for holistic student well-being to support academic growth. And we can see that him falling asleep in class, him not getting adequate sleep at night is directly inhibiting his ability to learn and to show up in the academic space. Additionally, the identified problem is within the social work realm. Although teachers can help the students stay awake in class, and the principal can help remind parents, hey, this is an issue that we're seeing recurring. Ultimately, because we have that relationship with the student due to our IEP meetings, and also because it contributes because it's directly related to client mental health and client well-being, the social work team is going to be kind of the point person on this problem. Now, on the right upper hand side, talking about human rights. So there could be unequal access to knowledge on the importance of sleep. Um, I know that in the times that I have met with this student and discussed their lack of sleep, I've shared some statistics and just also some information about what happens to our body when we don't get sleep. And the student was surprised and had no awareness of the ramifications, whether or not that's because of a gap in education or if that's because of a lack of student interest, that is unclear. Additionally, minimizing of basic needs by presiding narratives in the student's life, like disregarding the right to rest. We have seen in our middle school that there is kind of this mentality amongst our students that you have to be in the know all the time and to always have energy and always be present and always showing up is how you show that you are cool and that you belong and deserve a place in this area and in this school. Um, and so that kind of disregards the right to rest and the right to be able to rest and also be relevant at the same time. And so that could be a potential factor that is influencing the student as well, a need to show up even though it's not while he's at school, that he is like the problem behavior is not at school. Um, his behavior is still indicative of this desire to constantly have input, constantly have like um, sensory input as well, which is shown in his use of screens, both TV and video games, during the nighttime. Additionally, some justice issues are mother not having the capacity to address the problem of her child's sleep. And that's economic because, as we see with her job hours do not specifically align with what our school hours are. And so then sometimes she ends up working evenings, or sometimes she ends up working um, into the afternoon. And so she's not able to show up in the way of making sure the kids don't nap. Additionally, there's a need for co-creation of goals in light of differing identities. So since the student is an African American male and I am a white woman, I want to be conscious of that racial injustice that has been previously shown in social work and client relationships. And so part of that is going to be co-creating this goal and making sure that the problem that we are addressing is brought up by the student, and also the goals, incentives, and outcomes that we're working towards are also set by the student and are in alignment with their goals and are not just what I'm observing and putting that on the student. And additionally, developmental stage and perpetuating narratives of relevance is another social injustice. Not the developmental stage, that's not an injustice, but the idea that you have to constantly have input and you have to constantly just be on, whether that's online or on in conversation or on in sharing your opinion. That's a social injustice because that leads to burnout and um, a flawed narrative where if you don't contribute, then you don't belong. So that's a lot of relevant data. Let's jump into it. So the hypothesis is that incorporating a sleep log with personalized incentives into student M's check-in and check-out, and that's the acronym for check-in and check-out, will increase his hours of sleep by 2 hours each night for 1 week. Okay. So then we have our practice theories. So first we have these are the theories that are influencing the intervention that we decided. So we have the trans-theoretical model of change. So student has arrived independently at contemplation, but required direction on preparation and action. So they themselves have brought up the fact that I'm not getting a lot of sleep. I am frustrated that I am not getting not able to show up in school the way that I hope to, X, Y, and Z. I'm not able to stay in class. But the student also really doesn't know what it looks like to make a change and what it looks like to plan for making a change that's actually going to be effective. And so we recognize that that's where the student is in the model of change, which is a great place to be. They're not pre-contemplation. Additionally, we have person and environment. So we are recognizing the triggers that he has to stay awake at home or to take a long nap as soon as he gets home. Um, and part of that is to be able to provide more autonomy to the student in identifying what is going to help him in achieving this goal and what is going to hinder him in achieving this goal, and show what is in his control and what is not, which we'll get into later. Accountability. So providing supports for students, but positioning them as experts and in charge of their lived experience is crucial here. And that practice is indicative of dignity and worth of a person and importance of human relationships, two of our main values in the social work code of ethics. And additionally, back to recognizing what is in his control and what he is able to hold is the locus of control. And this idea of the locus of control has also greatly influenced this intervention. So, an internal locus of control and greater self-control have each been linked, for example, to a healthier lifestyle and greater physical and mental well-being. So, the student is pretty cognizant of the fact that his lack of sleep is his choice and that his choices are leading to this reduced quality and quantity of sleep. However, the student doesn't necessarily, at least before the intervention, recognize the control that he has within himself to be able to combat those triggers, to label the triggers, and to come up with a plan to then get better sleep. A lot of times when the student originally talked about it, it felt like he felt interested in being able to get more sleep, but it felt like this far off, like, I don't know where to start, so why would I type of thing. So being able to focus on what is in our control, what can I hold, what can I do to remedy the situation has been very beneficial for the student. Additionally, incentive theory of motivation has greatly influenced this. So incentives have to be meaningful, but can take on various forms. And this theory is based in operant reinforcement. So we're basically saying that with the behavior that we're seeing from the student, we want to reinforce it. And the more that the behavior has a positive consequence, the more that the student will want to repeat that behavior. So for each week and each day that the student has 2 extra hours of sleep, per the sleep log and the hypothesis that we talked about, the student will get a reinforcement that they themselves picked based on the level of achievement they were able to attain. So they're able to get 1 more hour. Maybe that's going to be a lesser reinforcement than if they got an additional 5 hours of sleep. So, and part of putting that, making incentives personalized and applicable to the student also is indicative of self-determination within the student and offering them back some of that control, saying, hey, We want to be co-creators in this process, and we want to make sure that this is actually going to be beneficial to you. So those are some of our practice theories that influence this change. Practice models. We heavily utilized SMART goals. We talked about what each letter stood for, what that meant for us, why SMART goals. We talked about how goals were made practical, approachable, and clear, not only to the student, but also to the staff. Additionally, we talked about the KICO, the check-in and check-out. And so the School Mental Health Collaborative was where I got that information. But the check-in, check-out is geared for students with attention-seeking behaviors, but provides accountability and operant reinforcement. So it's that guaranteed accountability and adult relationship at the beginning and end of the day to be able to say, hey, you're on track, or hey, what do we need to do to make sure that we can be on track the next couple of days, and to offer those incentives that we talked about on the last slide that are going to be relevant and applicable and desirable with the student. So those are our practice models that we utilized and kind of shaped our whole process around. Okay, now we have goals and evaluation strategies. So some of our main goals here, we have the student fills out the check-in and check-out form, and that is every day for a week. Another goal is increasing hours of sleep from baseline sleep trends by 2 hours. So whatever the baseline week of our data collection, um, yeah, whatever that is, it needs to be increased by 2 hours. Whether he had no hours of sleep during baseline and then he gets only 2 hours, that's still 2 hours. If he sleeps 7 hours in baseline and gets 2 additional hours, great. Additionally, have a student independently committed to healthier sleep rhythms. So the first two goals we can track with our intervention and track with kind of our pre-test, post-test type of approach. However, the third goal is for the student to be able to independently continue this. So, how are we going to evaluate these goals? The first goal, have the student fill out the check-in, check-out form. The evaluation of this goal will be to meet up with the student success coach who does the check-in, check-out with the student, to track the number of days the student willingly fills out the sleep log. As for the second goal, increase hours of sleep from baseline sleep trends by 2 hours. The evaluation of it would be collect baseline data over the period of a week and then cross-examine the data to evaluate whether student sleep has increased by 2 hours each night. Additionally, the last goal would be have student independently committed to healthier sleep rhythms. So that would be have student fill out the sleeping log a month after post-intervention and analyze data to determine whether the student has maintained getting 2 hours a night from baseline measures. So we would, yeah, essentially a month after we have removed the intervention, we would um, have the student fill out the form again, the sleep log again, and then we would compare their sleep post-intervention by 1 month with their baseline to see if that change was maintained. And then we'd also compare it to when the intervention was applied and see if there was any dips or if it stayed the same. Okay. So intervention strategies. So we utilize co-creation and student incentives to ensure that the student was motivated to work towards the available rewards. Additionally, we discussed the effectiveness of the sleep scale and the importance of sleep in social work minutes to provide additional accountability. So once again, the student success coach, which we work closely with as a part of the behavioral intervention team, they are the ones who do the check-in and check-out, and our role is separate. So, part of talking about sleep during social work minutes as well is, like I said, another form of accountability. Additionally, the trans-theoretical model of change, moving from contemplation to preparation and then action. So we're honoring the client's right to self-determination. We're not pushing them past the stage that they're in. However, we are providing them with the tools to be able to move from the stage that they are in. So we are encouraging them to consider how getting sleep helps them achieve their previously mentioned goals as well. And this can help them move towards preparation and action in the model of change. So previously mentioned goals include getting on the football and basketball team in high school. And for a couple of our social work minute sessions, we talked about how getting adequate sleep, eating nutritious foods, doing good in school, those are all things that are going to set them up for success in getting on the team in high school, whether that's football or basketball. So sadly, with this intervention, I was not able to fully see the intervention through. However, in my evaluation, I would collect quantitative data based on the sleep logs that track the hours of sleep the student gets, once again, being able to compare and contrast, were there changes, were there not, where did we see dips, where did we see peaks. Potentially provide a student with a Likert scale form if I am not present, or if I am present, prompt them in discussion surrounding if they have noticed any benefits from getting more sleep, granted that they get the additional hours. So checking in and seeing like, hey, if you're getting more sleep, what are you noticing? Is it going well? What's hard? What's difficult? What positive effects have you noticed in your mind, in your body, socially, etc.? Additionally, I would discuss with the student success coach who implemented the intervention um, whether the format of the sleep log was applicable and effective to meeting the student needs. So my interpretation of the evaluation and what I would do differently. So first, it would have been more effective if we would have been able to do a thorough evaluation at the end. We started the data and it was going well. We had the sleep log, student was filling it out, but then as in schools and as in life, a lot of things kind of went not necessarily according to plan. So our student success coach, their wife had their baby, but they had their baby early. And so they are on paternity leave quicker and sooner than we anticipated. Additionally, we had spring break right in the middle of this intervention, and the student, due to some behaviors, sadly has gotten a couple suspensions. Additionally, with student gone due to suspension or unexcused absences also broke up the intervention. So you have those long chunks of spring break and transitioning to a new student success coach while the other one is on leave. But then you also have those random days where the student is suspended. Per the model of change, the trans-theoretical model of change, the student was in preparation, was in contemplation, was able to move to preparation, but then struggled to get to action. So it would have been effective to have a reflection of student and effectiveness of the intervention to touch base on like, okay, you had the tools and you were excited to try this out, and then it kind of fell through. And yes, there are a lot of environmental factors with changes, with breaks, with behaviors, but what else is there that could have helped you in the process of trying out this intervention? Additionally, increased interdisciplinary implementation without feeling overbearing could be nice. It's just that increased accountability. So, whether that's like a teacher, like mentioning the benefits of sleep in like a class opening discussion, or whether that's like a principal, like email going out to teachers, whatever it is, just having that increased awareness of, hey, some of our students aren't getting a lot of sleep, and how can we kind of bolster the support from all sides to ensure that they do get sleep. Additionally, increased conversation concerning student goals. A student would change his opinion on what was incentivizing from week to week. So this one is a trait of middle school. But part of what was tricky in implementing this intervention is that what was incentivizing to the student one day would be completely null and void the next week, just based on whatever mood the student was in. And so, really determining what is going to be incentive through and through and consistently would have been more helpful. Additionally, support from mom slash providing her with a sleep log could be beneficial. It's a over behavior to monitor. So yes, the student can come in and they can, like the next point says, ensure student is accurately providing information. Yes, the student can come in and they can say, I slept this many hours. But then if the mom also had a sleep log, we would be able to cross-reference and make sure that what he's saying is accurate and is truly representative of the amount of sleep he got the previous night. However, back to being a single mom and working, it would be difficult for the mom to be able to log that sleep due to her work and also sleeping herself, as the student often would fall asleep at a regular time but get up in the middle of the night and then stay up for the rest of the night. So, although the intervention didn't go through in its entirety, I do feel like, given the circumstances that we found themselves in, ideally we would have completed the intervention and been able to fully evaluate its effectiveness. However, I think providing the student with the information on the benefits of sleep, the skills to be able to create a plan of how to get more sleep, and also providing staff with the information they need to support students in getting more sleep were beneficial to our school and to the student. So here are my references, and that is all that I have today.